All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, basketball fans of all ages, I am Beats Mike You. Now ride with my train of thought. It's time to talk about the NBA Power Rankings, the penultimate version in the regular season. So how this is going to go down is that next week I will do a normal power ranking similar to this, and then the week after will be solely based off predictions for the play-in and the playoffs in the NBA, and the same will go for hockey. So, well, without the whole play-in stuff for the NHL. But anyway, that's how this is going to go down, and that's how I am going to operate with these rankings. We're going to start, as always, well, the new always, if you will, with the Eurostar Zombie Tier. Washington, any wins left? That's kind of the question I have for the Wizards when it comes to their remaining schedule. They maybe have one, I guess you could say, easy game, but for a team in Zombie Tier, and no game should be that easy, and here's how it looks. Miami tomorrow night, though the Heat have had some terrible losses this season. You have Brooklyn on Sunday, and then you have Chicago twice, which is kind of weird how you drew the Bulls twice down the stretch, Miami again, and then Cleveland. Can Washington win any of these games? I would argue probably yes, considering how bad Chicago and Brooklyn are and how Miami is known to lose some clunkers. It's on the board that Washington wins a couple of these, just because of the competition they play. Brooklyn, UConn lost? Yeah, believe it or not, the women's team lost. Never mind talking about the Nets. The Nets are terrible. I think we've established that. But when it comes to the women's Final Four, the fact that the UConn women actually lost, considering how they've destroyed everything in front of them this season, is downright shocking. And as of now, there's 18 seconds left in the second Final Four game between Texas and UCLA, and Texas has made a furious run down the stretch. It's currently a 3-point lead for UCLA, and they're going to be inbounding the ball to try to salt this away and play South Carolina. There's a timeout being called. I will update as we go. Anyway, the Bruins and Longhorns will be facing the Gamecocks. The winner of this game will be facing the Gamecocks and Dawn Staley and her crew as they try to get the national championship back and have their second in 3 years, their third in 5 years. We'll see if they can actually get that done. Also, the Nets are terrible, but we've established that, and we kind of understood what the assignment was. There is some consistency to it, and that was the other words I was going to talk about when it came to the Nets properly, because all the games when it comes to Brooklyn over the last week or so have been blowouts. There have been 2 games where 99 points were scored by the losing team. The Nets only lost one of those games. The other was against the Kings, which is kind of surprising. Then there was a couple of beatdowns by New Orleans by Charlotte. They formerly known as New Orleans Hornets. They're not that. The Charlotte Hornets and Atlanta, who both destroyed the Nets. They're both going to the playoffs or play-in, and that's probably to be expected. Anyway, the women's Final Four is with all 4 1 seeds. The Nets are almost finally done this season, and they're very properly constructed tank. We'll see if they can get to the 14% chances of getting the first overall pick in the draft. Indiana, 2 straight blowouts. Yeah, that's par for the course for the Pacers to be involved in a couple of beatdowns, but here's the catch and the kicker here. They're also administered one of the blowouts, which, believe it or not, one of which to a new team that will be in these Zombie Tier rankings. You will hear them in a little bit. The other one was to Charlotte, because the Hornets are pretty good at beating up the bad teams, and then Indiana without Tyrese Halliburton can't really keep up with them. Pacers, don't worry, your gap year is almost up, and you can start to prepare for the draft and the draft lottery, and then getting Halliburton back, and then probably becoming immediately an East contender, because I think that's what we're all thinking right now. They're going to be an East contender immediately once they get healthy. Utah, competitive against Denver. That's one thing we'll say about the Jazz. They lost both these games against the Nuggets in the last week or so, but they were at least competitive. And Utah, with all their younger roster, young kids, they're not playing the 3 best players, obviously. They haven't done so in the last couple of months. At least for the Jazz's sake, I can kind of sort of live with it because they're actually fighting. Good on you, Utah. You're not going to go down sad, for the most part, unless you're facing a horribly overmatched team where you're just badly outclassed. But at the very least, they fought against their rivals in the form of the Nuggets, their mountain rivals, if you will, in the form of the Nuggets. And that's at least worthy of some sort of praise. Sacramento, kind of decent finish. The Kings have kind of been hovering around this 5-5, 4-6, 6-4 run over the previous 10 games for a while now. And I will give Sacramento some credit for that. The fact that they, too, are also not finishing horribly sad. They're actually currently playing in the one NBA game going on right now with the Pelicans, and there's about 80 seconds left in the third period. They're only down by 4, so they could actually improve this even further. They're 4-6 in their last 10, Sacramento is, and now they could obviously get to 5-5. They get this done. So good on you. Good on you, Sacramento. You actually won your last game before this and beating the Raptors on the road. So not bad. Flying across 2 countries to get that done. Good work on your part. Yes, you got beat up a couple of times, but again, your season's almost over too, and you're one of the few teams I would say absolutely has to have this draft go right. That's you guys, that's Brooklyn, that's Utah, especially you three. Because at least with Washington, you got Ant Davis and Trae Young. With Indiana, you got Tyrese Halliburton coming back. With Dallas, the team like the Mavericks, you have Cooper Flagg. With the Pelicans, you have some decent veterans. But with Sacramento, you have to get this right. You absolutely have to. And the Jazz as well, for that matter, to be honest. New Orleans, 30-point losses. The good news is New Orleans has almost cut their 30-point loss total in half compared to last year. Last year, they lost 7 30-point games. The bad news is it's still 4, and it's still a lot of 30-point beatdowns. And they took another one this past week, and it's not great for the Pelicans. Yeah, your disaster zone of the season is almost over. Well, sure. And I guess the next question is, with all these changes with New Orleans, obviously having the interim coach and all these changes that they're going to have to make, where do they go from here? What do the Pelicans do now? What do they do next? Because some things have to change. Some things that have to change, and I think drastically, for New Orleans to take any sort of step forward in the Western Conference, in a conference that is getting obscenely stacked. Also, before we get out of this tier, there's one more team left in it. This game's about to end between Texas and UCLA. There's 3 seconds left. UCLA is now up by 5, and they're about to go to the free throw line to finish the job. So it looks like it's going to be the Eastern Coast USC versus UCLA in the national championship on Sunday night in Phoenix. But that's the women's game. I think South Carolina's winning another national championship. Anyway, back to the regularly scheduled program. And the final team in these power rankings, Chicago. Seoul Exchange Met. There's a reason why I say this. Illinois is in the men's Final Four, and they've earned their way in. They've done a very good job, the Illini, just being an overall productive and talented team. They've been as such the entire season, and the Illini continue to keep it going and keep cooking. Good work on their part. They're obviously going to be in the undercard in the men's Final Four showdowns with Connecticut, as Connecticut stole one of the best games that we will see in the NCAA tournament in a long time. And the reactions to the Mullins shot have been absolutely epic from UConn fans and from Duke fans as they try to understand the choke job that they just put themselves through. What a hilariously bad way to lose for Duke to go down like this. And they did it in front of Grant Hill, too. Not like this. Anyway, Illinois is going to the Final Four, so we can see where the basketball talent is in the state of Illinois. And Chicago, at least your season's almost over, I guess. The Bulls are pretty miserable, and I guess it's fair to say that none of us are really trying to watch the Bulls play basketball. You finally became worthy of being in the zombie tier because you lost a bunch of games and it looked really awful over the last few weeks. The UCLA game is officially over, and they're going to the title game for the first time ever in the women's version of basketball. Kind of wild with all the men's history. Anyway, congrats to UCLA and South Carolina for making the national championship game for the ladies. The men will settle their business tomorrow, or today when this gets dropped out. Anyway, we're going to go to the UK Pacer, not the Indiana version, but the UK Pacer Monkey's Paw tier. Dallas, flag makes history. This one's going to be maybe one win because Dallas' schedule down the stretch is absolutely ridiculous to close out the season. But we got to give Cooper Flagg his flowers real quick. He became the youngest player in NBA history to give somebody a 50 burger tonight, as he put up 51 in the Mavericks game this evening against Orlando. Now, sure, Dallas lost, but the fact that Cooper Flagg went and cooked that hard tonight is incredibly impressive for somebody that productive. 19 of 30 shootings is actually fairly efficient, and he hit all his free throws, only 7 of them, which is even surprising. He didn't have to be a free throw merchant. We're looking at USGA, but he didn't have to be a free throw merchant to get these to get those buckets and get those points. Still, it was a loss for the Mavericks, as most games are, and they get closer to the end of the season, just like all these other teams in Zombie Tier. By the way, Dallas's games left, just to prove my point of what the 3 points would have been. They have the Lakers in LA. They have the Lakers at home, and obviously without Luka, they should be okay there, you would think. And then they go to LA with the Clippers, then Phoenix, then San Antonio, and then Chicago. The first 4 games here, I don't know if they're winning. Well, they'll maybe the Lakers because of no Luka, but the 3 middle games, I don't see it. And then, of course, you got Chicago at the end. So I guess we'll see how Dallas ends it. And maybe they go 2-3 out of these 5, considering the Luka Doncic injury. Memphis, reconstruction needed, which has been the theme for a lot of this. They need to figure it out and fast and try to get this right and quickly. How does Memphis figure this draft out? And I think they're another team that absolutely has to get the draft right. Like I said about Sacramento and Utah, considering the small market resources that they may have, and what are they going to do with John Morant, and can they even move John Morant if they wanted to? And I'm sure they've wanted to for the last year or so. How do they move? And Memphis is critical. There's a critical next few months for the Grizzlies. You can't have Coward, who is a 13-point scorer, be your team leading in scoring amongst those guys coming back, and let that be what's going to happen year 2. That can't stick. Milwaukee, Giannis wants next. So this happened earlier today, and I guess it's one of the benefits of me not having to, not doing these rankings earlier, is that Giannis wants to play, and Giannis is annoyed that he's not playing, and Milwaukee's going to get invested by the NBA, it seems like, for the fact that they could have played Giannis and chose not to. It feels like Giannis is healthy enough to play. He says he is, and Milwaukee doesn't believe it since he hyperextended his knee about 3 weeks ago or so. I think this could be some really dicey stuff when it comes to the Bucks, as they have kind of, not even accidentally, they're just outwardly saying they're going to kind of sort of tank it and look towards next season as best they can, and while missing the playoffs pretty efficiently and easily since the Giannis injury and Cam Thomas situation. It at least has gone kind of their way for the tank, if you will. Golden State, Steph coming back. So Golden State's locked into the play-in. I think we've established that. Now, the only question will be whether they host the 9-10 game with Portland or they will go to Portland for said game. In the meantime, between time, at least Steph Curry is going to return, and they need him horribly because that offense without him does not offense. They don't really do that. A perfect example being the game against the Spurs on Wednesday, where they were pretty much cooked from the word go. And it really is a huge difference, obviously, without Steph, and with him, the way Steph continues to shoot well. It's good that he's going to be back and get Portland pretty much one last way to terrify you and make things that much more difficult for a young Blazer team that needs to continue to take steps forward. Golden State, glad that Steph's back. We'll see what he's able to do, and if they can get some sort of rhythm and momentum going into the playoffs. LA Clippers, another Spurs loss. Okay, now this one's different from the other two. How so? Let's talk about it. We got, with the first game that they lost to the Spurs, it was a 25-point lead that they blew. And, okay, fine, there was no Darius Garland, but they still blew a 25-point lead that they had no business blowing. The second game, they almost came back from down 20+, and this was without Kawhi Leonard, so even more impressive. But ultimately, they just couldn't get it together down the stretch. And now, yesterday, or Thursday, if you will, there was a situation where Wemby didn't play, and he was left out of the game, and then this game was never competitive. San Antonio outright destroyed the Clippers, and it was really over from midway through the first quarter, to be honest. So the fact that the Clippers allowed that is not great. Still, as long as the Clippers are healthy, they're going to give somebody a scare in the first round of the playoffs. And to be honest, they go no further than that unless they get the Lakers somehow in round 2. That depends if Luka's playing, of course. But we are going to go across the country to Miami. Brutal stretch. That's what the Heat have gone through over the last few weeks. They have really cooled off drastically since the Bam Adebayo 83 burger that he dropped on the Wizards. Is this the basketball gods' way of saying that Bam shouldn't have been the one to pass Kobe's modern-day record? Is that what we're doing here? Anyway, the Heat have looked really rough and have looked super sluggish. Sure, their defense has been cooked a lot, and that had nothing to do with the 80 piece that Bam dropped on Washington's heads. Their defense is not overall very good, and they routinely give up buck 30s, buck 40s. They had the buck 20 streak even before the Bam game. It feels like Miami's a play-in, at least to be out in the play-in, and even if that, maybe they're a quick one and done. And by quick, I mean gentleman sweep at the best. That's the best you got. Right now, they're going to be the 10 seed, and they'll figure it out from there. But I hope Miami's only a play-in team, and that's it and that's all, because they just don't have enough high-end talent to get this done. And Orlando, not much changed. It's unfortunate that they made the move for Desmond Bane, but to be honest, not much really changed when it comes to this team. And I mean that in the sense of they don't really shoot that well. Their injuries are still ridiculous, and because Franz Wagner's been out for a while. And though Bam Adebayo and Jalen Suggs and D-Bane are good, none of them are A1 guys, as in the alphas. They are the secondary. They are good, if you will, Robins to their necessarily needed Batman, but Orlando just doesn't have a Batman. And that's kind of incredibly vital to move in the Eastern Conference, or in the NBA for that matter. And I wish they could trade for one, or at least somebody with the skills to potentially become one, but they just don't have it. Even worse, with the Bane trade, they won't be able to necessarily draft it, at least not high, in June when it comes to the NBA draft. Orlando feels like a team that's also needs to be one and done and maybe try to do something in free agency or make another bold splash, but I just don't know what they do now. They just don't have enough offense, enough, I would say, shot creators, not named D-Bane. Adebayo and Wagner are both very good players. There's just something missing here. And I hope that Orlando can figure it out and figure out how to get it. Let's go take the trip on the California Zephyr and the playoff tier. Phoenix, not ready, but they're making progress. And that's a good sign. Because I think a lot of us thought Phoenix would be really high in this draft and start to prepare for one of the really cool freshmen that are coming out in June for the NBA draft. But instead, Phoenix has actually been somewhat respectable. There's been some puzzling losses in there, and they've had a rough run of form, which is why they're a little bit further down than you'd expect. But the Suns, for the fact that they're going to be in the playoffs the play-in at best or at worst, is a very good sign. It's still a very impressive thing to see. They're getting the free wins against Memphis and against Utah. Okay, cool. But if there's a fly in the ointment, it's simple. Other than Devin Booker, where are they going to get the truly consistent scoring that you can truly believe in? Because Jeff Green hasn't taken that, Jalen Green hasn't taken that step forward, and though Dylan Brooks has looked good, he also has had some injury issues and the drama he had off the court, if you will, recently. I'd like to think Phoenix, if they can continue to replenish and get some more scoring help for Booker, that they could make some noise next year. But they're going to have to do some work because the Western Conference is suddenly getting absurdly strong. Portland, progress officially clinched. Good on you, Portland Trailblazers, for making this run to the playoffs and the fact that you're at least going to be in the play-in and you're going to probably have 2 shots at getting into the postseason proper. Good on you. Also good on you for winning 8 of your last 10 and A, staying healthy, and B, really figuring some things out. I like what I'm seeing from the Blazers lately. That's a really good sign from a Blazer team that I wanted to see their young kids take some steps forward. Good on you. Your last 4 games, though, 3 of them are not nice. Denver, San Antonio, and the Clippers, and the first 2 are on the road, and then you have the Kings at home to close it out. The first 3, that's not great. I don't know. I don't love it. I don't think that's a great look. Can you keep the 9 seed away from Golden State? That is the question. You'd basically have to lose out and Golden State win out to lose the 9 seed and lose the game in Portland and have to go to San Francisco. But as long as you don't completely crater, you're going to be fine, and you're going to have at least one semi-playoff home game. And again, that's progress. Good on you, Portland, for doing that. Toronto, Kings at home? No, seriously, you lost the Kings at home? That is kind of gross. And by kind of, I mean very. That is not a great way to go into the playoffs and try to keep A, out of the play-ins, and B, try to get some sort of home court at all in the first round of the playoffs. Well, the latter's probably not happening, but the former, in the sense of staying out of the play-in, is in play. You just got to play better than that, and that's not great. And you're dealing with 2 teams ahead of you that I haven't talked about yet that are both scorching right now, and that's still pretty alarming. Can the Raptors get out of the 7th spot and into the 5 or the 6? Sure, they could, but do they have enough scoring to? Because if you're telling me currently healthy, the teams at 5 and 6 versus Toronto, and challenge any of them to score, Toronto's going to have the hardest time doing it, I would say. Charlotte, scoring and stopping. Well, Charlotte is one of the teams that are kind of hovering in an interesting category, I would say. Only 3 teams in the NBA are top 10 in scoring and top 10 in points allowed. That's the obvious 3 that you would expect, the 3 that have carried the NBA this season in terms of their records. That's San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and Detroit. Charlotte is actually relatively close to this. They're 13th in points for, but they're 6th in points allowed, which I will give a lot of sneaky credit to a Hornets team that you wouldn't expect to be that defensively sound. They're actually 7th in points allowed, but you wouldn't think that Charlotte would be this high in terms of actually stopping people from scoring, and yet they are. And maybe part of it's because teams try to keep up with their pace and all the shooting that they have, but they find a way to, and that actually deserves a whole lot of praise. They have stayed hot pretty much for the last 2 months plus, and it doesn't feel like they're going to slow down at all, because as long as they're hitting shots, they're going to be really tough to deal with, especially if the opposing team can't create shots and or has trouble scoring outside of 1 or 2 guys. They would be a nasty, nasty team to deal with for like a Detroit or for a Knicks in a best of 7, just because there's some last year's Pacers to them in the form of, if they get hot, they can go ridiculously hot. At least this version of Charlotte can. Philadelphia, 3-team gauntlet. So the Sixers' next 3 games are really ridiculous. They drew a very short straw over the next week. Here's who's on the straw. They get Detroit later today. Pretty big game for both these teams. And then they go to San Antonio. San Antonio, you may remember, absolutely obliterated, well, what was left of the Sixers after the Maxey injury. Embiid's normal stuff, which is generally not playing, and still during Paul George's suspension, then the Sixers are basically beaten by 50. And then they go to Houston, so they get 2/3 of the Texas Triangle. That's not a great 3-game set to deal with. And in the latter 2 are on the road, as I mentioned. That's Monday and Thursday in Texas. I'd like to think that the Sixers, amongst these 3 games, could they beat Detroit? Probably, because there's no Cade. And could they beat Houston? More than likely, because they don't have point guards, and I would like to think that Tyrese Maxey has a big night. They shouldn't beat San Antonio, especially if there's some Embiid drama or something, and the fact that San Antonio's depth has been ridiculous all year. Still, I like what I'm seeing from the Sixers, that they got off the mat and that they were able to recover once they got healthy. Now that they kind of sort of have a bench, maybe they could give somebody a scare in round 1, but honestly, I don't think they go further than that. Atlanta, probable 5 seed. They shouldn't catch Cleveland. And I don't think any of these 3 teams that I talked about in the East, as in Philly, Atlanta, Toronto. I don't think any of these three teams are going to clash Cleveland and are going to have to go road for round one. But at the very least, the Hawks have earned their way here and earned their way to a normal stage. Good on you, Atlanta, for doing this. The fact that the Hawks, since the Trae Young trade, where I think we all kind of left them for dead, the fact that they were able to have a really hot February and March. Good on you, Atlanta, for that. Now, yes, they did beat the Celtics, and there's a little bit of a disclaimer here because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum weren't really playing, but they do have a Celtics win in there during this run of great form by Atlanta. They're also scoring a bunch of points, which you kind of need to do that, and have looked like a very competent, productive team and been able to move the ball around pretty well. Good job, Atlanta, for doing so. Now, are you a threat in the finals? No, but you're at least way better than what we thought you'd be, and way better. You're going to have the pick way worse to give to San Antonio due to the pick swap. At least there's that for a Hawks team that we all thought could have been potentially doomed after trading Trae Young. Plus, there's that Pelicans pick you guys are going to get. That's going to come in handy very nicely. Houston, fine since Minnesota. To be fair to the Rockets, they haven't lost since the Minnesota game. And what am I talking about? Well, it's the game I kind of talked about last week during these rankings, where the Rockets sprung to life in overtime. They had a monster lead and somehow gave it all back. It was one of the weirdest overtimes of all time, where the Rockets were up by 13 in the overtime and then lost that lead and completely lost the game. It was completely insane. And it's a shame because Şengün was doing everything in his power, and Durant too. They were doing everything in their power to beat the Timberwolves. And this is without Anthony Edwards, mind you, and somehow still lost. It's ugly. Houston, to be fair to them, since that game and since that collapse, has actually not lost and have looked like the competent team that they have generally been. Sure, Utah and Milwaukee are basically free wins at this point. And for that matter, so is New Orleans. But at least there's a Knicks win in there. You can't take that for granted. There's also Memphis there. That's another free win. There's at least a Knicks win, though. That's the big point here. That's the big thing you can circle here. They beat a team, I would say, in their weight class in the form of the Knicks. Minnesota, just stay healthy. That's where I am with Minnesota right now. That's where I am with the Timberwolves. They are a gritty, tough, talented team, and obviously enough playoff experience and enough playoff style ball where they're going to give some teams some run, no matter where they finish. And they're going to be a really tough out for a team in round two, whether it's Oklahoma City or San Antonio, presumably. I think they're going to be a real good challenge for either of those two squads, especially with Anthony Edwards being healthy. And we know how good he can be in the playoffs. And we know that Rudy Gobert has generally been a decent playoff performer when he's not. Doesn't have to be the number one or number two guy. Julius Randle's played relatively well. He's played okay when it comes to the postseason. Plus, Minnesota's role players have all seemed to come up clutch until we get to the conference final, which they have been there the last 2 years, to be fair to them. I don't think they'll get there this year, at least they shouldn't. But the Timberwolves have proven themselves to be a pretty resilient and gritty team, at least over the last few years. Their running back game with Houston coming up, I think, will be a very fun one to see if Houston's learned anything, or if Minnesota's learned anything, to be honest, from the game in question I just described against each other last week. And we're going to take the VSOE to title tier. Cleveland, 3 seed possible. It is on the board that they catch the Knicks. They are not far out, and to be honest, with the way Cleveland has played and how steady they've been since the Harden trade, I almost would be disappointed if they didn't catch them. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and they're only a game and a half behind the Knicks for said 3 seed. Cleveland's schedule down the stretch. There's a lot of winnable games here. Indiana, which is kind of a free win, and Memphis is too. And then they get 2 games with Atlanta, which should be very intriguing for both these teams. And then you can close out with Washington, which seems like another free win. So in theory, you got 3. Can you get one against Atlanta and get 4 of the last 5 in your season? Making sure that the Knicks would have to basically go 3-2 at worst to survive this. It's on the board, I think. I think they could absolutely swipe the 3 seed and make the second round of the playoffs very intriguing for the Knicks, and for that matter, Cleveland. if they both can get that far. Speaking of the Knicks, they're next. Potential playoff previews. Now, I just mentioned Cleveland's schedule down the stretch. New York's is not as also not easy. They get the Hawks as well, so Atlanta's going to end with three games down the stretch with teams they may actually see, especially Cleveland in the case of the Cavs in round one. And then they get Boston, which that's a game on Thursday I'm very much looking forward to seeing. The Knicks have been kind of hit or miss when it comes to placing the upper echelon teams. And against Boston, now that they're going to have Tatum back, obviously, and Jaylen Brown there, that could be a round 2 matchup. Let's see what goes down here. And obviously, Tatum's first return to Madison Square since the Achilles tear on that same court. That'll be a fun one. There's also Toronto next Friday, and then they close out with Charlotte. So actually, they're going to face 4 teams that are going to be play-in or better than the Knicks are. What do the Knicks do in this situation? Do the Knicks keep the 3 seed? That's something I'm looking forward to seeing play out. Denver, showdown tomorrow. That's what we're going to see with the Nuggets. We may see could be conference final, could be round 2. The point is it could be a playoff preview against the Spurs. And Denver's one of the few teams, only 2, the Knicks being the other, to have beaten San Antonio since February. I'm so serious, more on that later. But Denver, obviously, their portion of it was no Wemby. And it took a absurd game from Jokic, which is generally above average game for Jokic at this point, and a 40-burger from Jamal Murray to get that done. This will be a really entertaining game, especially if Wemby plays on the Saturday in the Mile High City. This will be a really fun one. Both these teams have won on the opposite team's home court this year, too. So that's another thing to really pay attention to for this. Denver is coming in hot, too. They have really maybe taken my thoughts on them a couple of weeks ago personally, where I wanted to see more out of them. And Denver has crushed many challenges before them to make it hot. So, Denver, good on you. You understood the assignment, and you kept it going. This will probably be your greatest test yet as the season gets towards its conclusion. I'm looking forward to watching tomorrow. LA Lakers, worst case scenario. Yeah, never mind the fact you got obliterated by the Thunder. You haven't done well against the upper echelon teams all year. Okay, fine. That's not the point here. The point here is the picture you see here with Luka Doncic and the fact that Luka's injury with his hamstring is knocking off for the rest of this regular season and potentially even further. Meaning that whatever chance you might have had to make a move in the NBA playoffs, it's probably cooked. And you're probably done. Which is just devastating because Luka has basically been on a one-man crusade to not only win MVP, but to put the Lakers in championship contention. Laker fans have been very loud about the whole Luka should win MVP and the Lakers are title contenders. Now, most of us non-Laker fans did not believe the latter part, but Luka was becoming worthy of consideration for the former. The Lakers are now cooked if Luka can't come back soon and quickly. Because if that's the case, they're out round 1, and this would be a pretty wasted season as maybe LeBron's last shot at winning an NBA championship. Detroit, will Cade return? One superstar is going to be out for a bit, and one potential one may be returning in a bit. Cade Cunningham, it's on the board with his lung injury, the collapsed lung issue. It's on the board potentially that he could make his way back. And that would be a huge boost for a Pistons team that's kind of going to need all hands on deck, I think, to survive Boston and the Knicks if they were able to see them in the playoffs. Or maybe even deal with a Charlotte team that's got a bunch of dudes that can shoot. And I get it. Detroit's got a real defense. I get it. They're the only team in the Eastern Conference that's top 10 in points for and points against. But a lot of that is Cade. And a lot of that is the drama that he causes and the production that he brings. I don't think Detroit can keep up, to be honest, with a lot of these teams. There's some ugly matchups for the Pistons if they have to deal with them in round 1. And Charlotte's probably the ugliest. I don't love that scenario for them because Charlotte can shoot people out of the building if they absolutely had to. In Detroit, you would be one of them. We'll see if Cade can get healthy, though. Good run of form without him, but you absolutely got to have him if you want to do anything in the next 2 weeks. Boston, Eastern Boogeymen. I get the sense from a lot of fans and a lot of reporters and a lot of analysts that there's a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference that are going to make it and could do something. I think we all expect Boston to do something and Boston to make a deep run. They feel like the team in the Eastern Conference where it's like, oh, they kind of sort of feel inevitable. With Brown and Tatum, with all the experience, with all the shooting, with a really good amount of depth, they just feel inevitable to, I think, a lot of us, where the Celtics are just going to make a deep run and say the East is still theirs. And it's on the board that could have been theirs last year had they played a little bit better and Tatum not destroyed his Achilles. So Boston, it feels like, well, as long as they're healthy, as long as Tatum and Brown are there, maybe they get Vucevic back, that they're going to probably be back in the NBA Finals. As long as they're able to stay healthy, I think that feels like the case. Oklahoma City, casual annihilation. That's something that happened on Thursday night against the Lakers, where you looked up and they had an 80 piece by the time we got to the end of the half. That's absolutely insane. And it didn't feel like the Thunder were in full gear when they did it either. It felt like the Thunder were kind of like in second gear, and they had the Lakers mega cooked and then just put it in cruise control for the latter 24 minutes. The Thunder seem to be able to do that at will to anybody and everybody that can get it and can't keep up with them. And then their defense suffocates you and puts you to sleep, pretty much. That's just the way Oklahoma City rolls. And now that they're kind of healthy for the first time all year, they, I think, are a worthy favorite to win the championship and retain the title. I guess the question is, can they? And can they get past the one team that's given them problem all year, helped or not, in San Antonio? Twice since February. They're only 2 times at San Antonio actually lost the game, and only once with everybody there. And as I mentioned, the Denver game, obviously Wemby didn't play, and it still took everything from the Nuggets to beat them. The Knicks beat them straight up, where Wemby was playing, he played well, everybody played, the Spurs just didn't shoot well. Other than that, it's been San Antonio destroying everything in front of them. They've had 2 11-game win streaks in this run, and they're on a second one right now. That's how, and most of these games have not been competitive. Most of these games have been destructions and beatdowns. And the Clippers have gotten it 3 times from the Spurs in this run. And for example, then San Antonio's played with Wemby's going to dominate one night, and then it could be Castle, it could be Vassell, it could be Keldon Johnson, it could be De'Aaron Fox, it could be Dylan Harper, it could be Julian Champagnie. It's the depth. The fact that 8 guys can absolutely cook at any given moment, and if any 3 of them are cooking, you're done. That's how good the San Antonio has played this year, and has played in the last few months especially. Today will certainly be a test in Denver, but the Nuggets are so good at home and are the best offense in basketball. They're number 1 in scoring. Can San Antonio, with Wemby playing there, and that's the other key part to this, can they continue this incredible run of form? Wemby has to play 4 of the next 5 games to be eligible for the awards that he would, the award of Defensive Player of the Year that he'll inevitably win, and potentially MVP as well. There you have it. That's this week's Power Rankings. Like I said at the top, next week will be similar to this. It probably won't be as long, and it will also be the last one in the regular season. The week after will be playoff predictions and an abbreviated version of Power Rankings. But what's coming up next on this channel? Miami Mock Mondays. That's what's happening next. Once again, we're going to delve into the 11 picks and maybe do something different. Will there be Nittany Lions in this draft? Will there be any Drew Aller in this draft? Who will I be able to get at 11? Because these mocks seem to be changing every week with the options I have. Anyway, the 11th pick in the draft will be the first stop of my next train of thought.